Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Om J. Lakhani. I'm a consultant endocrinologist from Ahmedabad. Do you want to know the future? Let me predict the future of diabetes management. This glucometer that you use every day and that you use in your practice will be a thing of a past. And more importantly, we'll be talking about something which is known as TIR. What is TIR? TIR is time in range. This is a value derived from ambulatory glucose profile generated from continuous glucose monitoring. In this lecture, I'll discuss everything that you need to know about the time in range. So, watch this. Time in range. Now, why this is important, I'll tell you. I'll predict the future in a way. I believe that in future we'll be talking more about time in range and we'll be talking less and less about HbA1c. In my short presentation, I'm also going to talk about the difference between time in range and HbA1c. But so far the data which is emerging and our own experience with time in range, it's really fantastic. It's something which is emerging parameter which we would all like to monitor in our diabetic patients. Now all this has been made possible because of the use of the intermittent CGM device which is now available in India called the Freestyle Libre Pro, which is available in India. And I think it's a cost effective option, and with this a lower cost therapy which is now a lower cost testing option which is now available to us, we are able to get a very important parameter and we are able to learn more about diabetes management in our patients than ever before. So this is about time in range. Okay, so first we'll talk about some basics about time in range. Now this is a CGM ambulatory glucose profile taken from a patient very recently. You can see the readings were taken from 12th March to 26th March, just before I actually had to call the patient during the lockdown, because he was completing his 15 days. And you can see his CGM record, which is quite good. This is a type 2 diabetic patient on insulin therapy. And what you see here on the left corner, this is known as glucose management index. Now, if you remember, there used to be something known as estimated HbA1c showing up here. The term estimated HbA1c is now outdated, and rather the more important term to use is glucose management index, GMI. So the problem is that sometimes patients used to confuse between a HbA1c done in the lab versus a estimated HbA1c derived from a CGM device, and hence they separated the term and now they call it as a glucose management index. So this glucose management index gives the average sugar over the last 15 days during which the CGM was placed, and the interpretation of this is very similar to how you would interpret an HbA1c report. Remember, 154 average sugar is equivalent to close to 7% of HbA1c. So this patient is clearly having an average sugar which is less than 7% of HbA1c. The second important parameter which we often read in our CGM report is we look at the graph overall, we see the thickness of the graph, we see the variation, and this period which is shown here, that's the range which we are already looking for, and that is the hero for today, which is basically time in range. Now, when you go to page 6, and those who have been using CGM would be very well aware about this. So when you take the CGM report, you see the last page. In the last section, you find a graph, you find a chart like this. This is the chart for time in range. What you see on the furthest left part, I'll try to annotate this if possible. Okay. Anyways, so what you see here is the glucose management index. What I've highlighted here is the parameter which you get in time in range. This is time below range, TBR. So that is the the glucose values which are less than 70 milligram per deciliter. And what you see in the furthest right is the time above range. This is the glucose values which are more than 180 milligram per deciliter. So this is a brief summary. I think for a clinician who is very busy, just look at this chart, and if you see this chart, you will get a lot of data about the patient just within a fraction of a second. You'll be able to assess your patient much better. Overall, looking at this patient is doing quite well. 92% of his readings are within the time in range. So the time in range is basically the percentage of time spent between the glucose value of 70 to 180 milligram per deciliter. Now, how did these values of 70 to 180 come into picture? This is actually, frankly, to tell you, this is based on the older generation data which we have, that is, the upper limit of 180 as a target and lower limit of 70 being the target for hypoglycemia. So this is where the time in range has been derived. Now, going more further into it, just time in range is not important. You also need to see time above the range and time below the range, right? Currently the CGM does not give you this report, but in future, I'm sure with the upgrade of the software from Libre, we might be able to get a complete graph like this. This is now present in some of the other CGM devices also. And this graph tells us the time in range, the time above the range and time below the range. It also tells you about level 1 hyperglycemia and level 2, and level 1 hypoglycemia and level 2 hypoglycemia. What are these terms? I'll just clarify. So the time in range is 70 to 180 milligram per deciliter, as we already discussed. Level 1, time above the range, that is the level 1 hyperglycemia, is glucose values between 181 to 250 milligram per deciliter. And level 2 hyperglycemia is when it's more than 250 milligram per deciliter. And if you see below, level 1 hypoglycemia is when the glucose values are 54 to 69 milligram per deciliter. And level 2 hypoglycemia is when the sugar value or the glucose value is less than 54 milligram per deciliter. So this is the complete picture. Again, a single screenshot or a single photo of this should be able to give you a lot of data about your patient without even seeing the detailed report. So the first important take-home message I'd like to tell you is that time in range is the glucose value between 70 to 180 milligram per deciliter derived from your CGM ambulatory glucose profile data. Okay, so what are the targets we should try and achieve in terms of time in range from CGM? Now, the time in range should be more than 70%. Again, why we come to the value of 70%, we'll discuss this in a few minutes. The time below range. So there is now international consensus guideline which has defined the targets which you should have based on the CGM, and they have given 3 important parameters. The first important parameter, of course, is the time in range. The second important parameter is the parameter for time below range of level 1 hypoglycemia. So the patient should have a level 1 hypoglycemia level of less than 4%. So he or she should be spending less than 4% of the total time of the day in this area, and the level 2 hypoglycemia should be less than 1%. That is, the patient should be spending less than 1% of the time in the glucose range of less than 54 milligram per deciliter. This is very, very intuitive. This is very easy to understand. I'm sure all clinicians who are in this group would understand that they don't want their patient to spend a longer time in hypoglycemia. Okay, but what is the normal physiology, right? Does a normal non-diabetic person, what kind of glucose values can we expect? So this is a study done by Viral Shah. Some of you may know Viral Shah. Viral Shah is, I would say, probably in the endocrinology field, he's a pride of Gujarat. This guy has done his MD from Jamnagar, his DM from PGI Chandigarh, and now he's in the United States. He's working at Barbara Davis Center for Diabetes in Colorado, and he's become one of the pioneers of or one of the most important figures in the world of continuous glucose monitoring, CGM. I think some of you, Vivek, probably might be knowing him personally also, right? So Viral is and this is a very interesting paper. This was published in JCEM. Viral and Shah, incidentally, is from Bhavnagar as far as I remember, and again, I would say probably a pride of Gujarat. So this data, actually, what we are going to talk about next comes from the data which is derived from the study done by Viral. Now, what does Viral's study show? So what they've done is something very simple. They've put a continuous glucose monitor in on patients on people who are normal, who are non-diabetic individuals. And what they really found was that the mean average glucose in a non-diabetic individual was 98 to 99 milligram per deciliter. The median time spent between 70 to 140. Remember, it's 70 to 140 and not 70 to 180 as we are normally measuring in diabetic patients. 70 to 140, the range was between 96%. The median time spent with glucose value more than 140 was 2.1%. So, the patient spent on an average there are just 2% readings which were more than 140, and in the hypoglycemic range the time spent was close to 1.1%, that is 15 minutes in a day. So this is what you get in a normal non-diabetic individual, and unfortunately we'll never be able to achieve the perfect result which is as close to a non-diabetic individual in a diabetic individual, especially in type 1 patients. But with expanding technology, with improving technology, we may be able to come very close to this result. So what is the correlation between a target time in range and HbA1c? This is what I wanted to talk about. Why do we talk about 70% time in range? There is a science behind it. There's a reason behind it. Remember, there is a negative correlation between time in range and HbA1c. So if you have a higher time in range, the more time you spend in range, less your HbA1c would be, right? So this is the ultimate importance, right? So it is a negative correlation. Lower the time in range, higher the HbA1c. Higher the time in range, lower the HbA1c. So this is a study where the HbA1c was correlated with the time in range data, right? And this is where we get our current data from. So the time in range of 65 to 70% basically correlates with an HbA1c of 7%. And this is the reason why we try to target the time in range close to 70% or more, so that our HbA1c is less than 7%. This is the reason why we do this, right? Just to show you in little bit more detail, the time in range close to, like I said, 70% correlates exactly with HbA1c of 6.9, the range being 5.9 to 7.9, and time in range of around 40%, which should be considered relatively poor, would correlate with an HbA1c of 8.1%, right? So this is what you will get when you correlate HbA1c with time in range. So ultimately, when you want to correlate with something which we already know, that is HbA1c, we should try to target our time in range close to 70% or more. Also remember, for every 10% change in time in range, the HbA1c changes by 0.8%. So if your time in range increases by 10%, your HbA1c falls by 0.8%. This is something which is very, very important, and very important for all clinicians to understand. So the second important take home message for all of you is that the time in range more than 70% is the target in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And this, if you don't take anything home, just take this point home, that time in range more than 70% is the target you should try and achieve in all your diabetic patients, right? And this should be your ultimate aim. And if you're able to do this, believe you me, you will be able to achieve an HbA1c close to 7%, probably less than 77% for almost sure. Okay, now comes the interesting part, right? Now we have been talking about time in range, but why does it really matter? Why does time in range really matter to our patients? The reason is that time in range correlates with the risk of diabetes related complications, and this is the reason why time in range is given a lot of importance in today's world. It's an area of emerging data. Now the problem, however, is that the concept of time in range is still relatively new, and remember, these studies take a long time. They take a very long time to really get good data. So any prospective study like a DCCT would actually take a very long time. It will take another 5 to 10 years for us to get good data about time in range and the risk of microvascular complication. But the good thing is that we already have some data available. Now this is an interesting study published in Diabetes Care, where they actually compared the time in range measured by a continuous glucose monitor with the risk of developing retinopathy in type 2 diabetes. Now again, everyone practicing diabetes here understands that the retinopathy is something which we should look for in all our patients. It's a very important microvascular complication to be assessed in our diabetic patient. So this study basically concluded that the lower time in range assessed by CGM was associated with increased risk of diabetic retinopathy in type 2 diabetes patients. So the lower the time in range, the more the patient was likely to develop diabetic retinopathy. Again, now I invoked DCCT trial. Remember the DCCT trial, a lot of whatever we know today in type 1 diabetes actually comes from DCCT trial. And hence this is very important to understand the DCCT trial. But what is very interesting is that somebody actually did an analysis of the time in range with the DCCT trial. I'll tell you how. Now, this study was published in 2019, in March 2019, but the data which they took was from DCCT. The study says it's again in Diabetes Care. This is a data validation of time in range as an outcome for measuring diabetes in clinical trials, and this data was taken from DCCT. Remember, during the time of DCCT, we did not have continuous glucose monitor, at least not in the form which is available today. So the data was taken from DCCT trial, but it was not taken from CGM. It was taken from 7-point glucose profile, which this patient used to measure. So remember, in the DCCT trial, the patients were asked to check sugar, a 7-point glucose profile. And the data from the 7-point glucose profile, remember, there are thousands of patients in the DCCT trial. And this data was then incorporated in the modern algorithm, and the time in range was actually derived. What they found was that the mean time in range in the 7-point profile of the 1,440 patients of the DCCT trial was close to 41%. So unfortunately, interestingly, even then, the time in range was not really great. Only 41% of the readings were in target. So we have today some type 1 patients and their doctor parents today with us, and we have a lot of all the clinicians who manage type 1 patients. There are a lot of times we feel that we are not doing a great job, we are not doing a perfect job, we are not doing well. The mother of all clinical trials, the DCCT trial, of 1,400 patients, they had time in range of an average of 41%. So it was not that great, right? And we have been doing only better after that. So if you are beating this, you are doing better than what was done by this thousands of patients. Then, interestingly, then it was correlated with the risk of developing microvascular complication based on this study. And you can see that for every 10% drop in time in range, for every 10% drop in time in range, there was 64% increased risk of developing retinopathy. So if your time in range fell from 70% to 60%, your risk of retinopathy increased by 64%, right? Which is a massive thing. You can see the graph which is given below. When the time in range is less than 10%, the risk of retinopathy was 58%, whereas time in range was more than 70%, the risk of retinopathy was only 5%. So you can clearly see that time in range has a huge impact on the risk of developing retinopathy. The same was seen with another important microvascular complication, which was microalbuminuria. And for again, every 10% drop in time in range, there was 40% increase of microalbuminuria. Again, you can see from this chart, if the time in range was more than 70%, there was just 3% risk of microalbuminuria, versus if it was less than 10%, the risk was 27%, right? So you can clearly see that from a normal to completely abnormal, the range is extremely huge. So, again, a very interesting study, and this is a relatively recent study called the CONCEPT trial, which was published in 2017 in the Lancet. And CONCEPT trial was basically trying to use CGM in pregnant women. And in this interesting study, what they found was for every 5% reduction in time in range in the second and third trimester, there's an increased risk of large for gestational age infants and adverse neonatal composite outcome. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that even in pregnancy, time in range is a very important parameter. And for every 5% reduction in time in range, there was an associated increased risk of large for gestational age baby. So, this validates the concept of gestational diabetes. Also, it validates the use of time in range as a concept even in pregnant women. So, the third important take-home message I'd like to tell you is that the correlation between the complications and time in range is an area of emerging research, and perhaps, somewhere down after 10 to 15 years, we would be able to get even more data, even more robust data on this topic, because this is a very, very interesting area. Am I audible so far, Mr. Mukesh? Yes. Okay. So great. Okay, great. So we'll move ahead to to the meat of the topic, right? The area which I feel is the most important thing which you'd like to discuss. Eventually, will time in range replace HbA1c? Right? When I started this talk right at the beginning, I told you that why I think time in range is very important is because time in range will eventually replace HbA1c as a target. Probably not replace it completely, because HbA1c will still retain its relevance. But I think we'll be talking more about time in range and less about HbA1c. For example, today, how many times do we really talk to our patients about आपका PP2BS कितना है, FBS कितना है? We often talk about आपका HbA1c कितना है, right? Because the patients though would like to talk about FBS and PP2BS, we would like to talk about HbA1c, because we know that the complications are linked with HbA1c, and hence HbA1c is something we are more likely to talk about. In the same way, in future perhaps we'll be talking more about time in range and less about HbA1c, and I'll tell you the reasons why. Now, the first important reason is, we all are practicing doctors. We all sit in a high pedestal. We often forget what our patients want. What does our patient want? Does our patient really, does HbA1c really matter to our patient? Does doing all the complicated tests which we do, does that really matter to the patient? What really matters to the patient, right? This was the study which was done about asking this exact question. What is the main issue which impacts the patient? And in this study, they took patients with type 1 diabetes, patients with type 2 diabetes on insulin, and patients with type 2 diabetes not on insulin, right? Now, the first thing which was common to all of them, which mattered, which had a big impact in life to all of these patients, was food choices, right? We even every day we get messages from patients whether they can eat this, whether they can eat that, right? Our dietitians are constantly in touch with our patients, right? Food choices, whether we like it or not, food choices matters to our patient. But what is very interesting is the second most important parameter, and these are patients who are using CGM, the second most important parameter, second most important thing which mattered to the patient after food choices was time in range, especially for type 1 diabetes patient. For type 1 patients, time in range mattered more than HbA1c. In fact, the time in range ranked second amongst what impacted their life, and HbA1c was only fifth, right? So for type 1 patients, they don't bother about HbA1c, they bother more about time in range. For type 2 patients on insulin, time in range and HbA1c had equal importance, and again type 2 diabetes not on insulin, time in range and HbA1c had equal importance. However, yet I would say time in range was important to all of these group of patients. So, for us, HbA1c may be an important test. I often get annoyed when my patients come to the clinic and don't get their HbA1c test done, right? It annoys me. But for patients, time in range is something which matters more. And I think, someday in future will be, it's just emerging now, but ultimately patients will decide what they want rather than what doctors decide what the patient should do. And this is where we are ultimately moving to. So the time in range and HbA1c fell apart for type 1 diabetes respondents without a doubt. For type 1 patients, for the patients, time in range mattered more than HbA1c. Okay, so, again, ranking on what would contribute to a positive frame of mind for patients, the type 1 patient said that if my blood glucose was within target all of the day, it mattered more to me. It contributed more to my positive framework. The same was seen with type 2 diabetes patients on insulin and type 2 diabetes patients not on insulin, right? For all of them, what mattered the most was the positive frame of mind actually came when the glucose were within the target range. So the fourth important take-home message I'd like to tell you, time in range matters more to patients with type 1 diabetes than HbA1c, and remember this point, right? A lot of you doctors deal with type 1 patients day in, day out. For your patients, and the more they understand about time in range, the more they are going to be concerned about time in range than they are going to be concerned about HbA1c. Okay, again, these results ultimately suggest that time in range is an important parameter for patients. What are the other advantages of time in range over HbA1c? Now, time in range is very useful in conditions where HbA1c is unreliable. For example, in patients with CKD, in patients with certain hemoglobinopathies, in all these conditions, the HbA1c may not be reliable. Again, a lot of you will be dealing with nephrology patients, and you know that HbA1c is extremely unreliable in patients with CKD, and hence, a time in range would be a useful parameter. One more very useful test here is glycated albumin. In our hospital, actually, I ran behind the biochemistry department and insisted that we start glycated albumin as a test. Someday we'll probably, if we have a good time, we'll also discuss about glycated albumin, because glycated albumin is also something which is a very useful test for management of your diabetic patients, both type 1 and type 2. But time in range, probably is as good as glycated albumin and a very useful test, for your patients when they are dealing with diabetes, especially where HbA1c is unreliable. Remember, time in range gives you a glycemic pattern over a relatively short period of time compared to HbA1c. We all have this complaint that patients follow up पे नहीं आते हैं, 3 महीने पे नहीं आते हैं, 4 महीने पे नहीं आते हैं, right? In such a scenario, time in range is very important because you know where your patient is going, right? And even if the patient doesn't show up at time or patient is locked down, like current scenario, in that case you are still reassured that the patient is relatively doing well. Most importantly, and this is something which I'd like to stress upon again and again, time in range reflects hypoglycemia better than HbA1c. Please remember this, right? HbA1c sometimes, is very reassuring. The patient has an HbA1c of 6.8, but it could be very well so that the patient may be having recurrent hypoglycemia, and hence the HbA1c is driven down to a lower value. On the other hand, a time in range, if the patient continues to develop recurrent hypoglycemia, the patient's time in range would be relatively low, right? So though the patient's HbA1c may be low, the time in range will also be low. What this suggests is that though the patient's HbA1c is within the target range, the patient is not doing so well because patient is developing recurrent hypoglycemia. By its nature, you can easily see that it's a short duration measurement, and hence it is very useful in pregnancy, right? Though the use of CGM in pregnancy is still emerging. Currently, I'm using it in all my GDM patients and all my pre-existing diabetes who get pregnant. All of these patients, we are using CGM on a routine and regular basis. However, it is still an emerging area because still there's a lot of data to be generated on this area. Finally, I'd like to talk about my study, our study, the study which we are doing. Unfortunately, this study is still not completed. I actually hope that I'll be able to do a lot of analysis of my data during the COVID lockdown, but unfortunately, sometimes research is something which gets the least importance in your day-to-day life, and everything else is more important than that. So this is the study which is what we are doing, is known as the FFF study. Why this is important? Because this study incorporates AGP and ambulatory glucose profile using LibrePro. Now this study of ours is a single center retrospective study. The questions which you are asking here, first of all, we all talk about fixed fasting first, right? So does correction of fasting, or fixed fasting first, does it with a strategic use of oral antidiabetics and insulin, is it enough for achieving a target glucose range with the use of AGP? This is the first question I'm asking. So, we all, discuss this very often. We all talk in our forums about fixed fasting first, right? Is fixed fasting first with insulin? Remember, these are for type 2 diabetes patients, not type 1. Does fixed fasting first achieve a stable glycemic control in our diabetic patient? Second, what is the dose of insulin required to achieve a stable fasting capillary blood glucose? What are the glycemic parameters achieved on ambulatory glucose profile amongst the patients in whom the fasting capillary blood glucose is corrected? And does one insulin, so we are using different types of basal insulin, does one insulin have any advantage over the other insulin in terms of glycemic parameters achieved with AGP? Finally, does the use of any specific oral antidiabetic have an advantage or disadvantage in terms of glycemic parameters using AGP? So these are the clinical parameters which we are studying. The patients included, it's a retrospective study. These are only for adult outpatient type 2 patients who have an AGP record available on a single dose of insulin. So we are not taking patients on multiple dose of premix insulin or multi-dose insulin. Those patients who achieved capillary blood glucose in the target range of 90 to 140 for at least 3 consecutive days, we are included in this study. We excluded pregnant patients, on those on glucocorticoids, and in those patients in whom there was an incomplete data set of AGP. Sometimes, the sensor comes out, very rare, but sometimes the sensor comes out and you have an incomplete data. Those patients we have excluded. So the methodology is the insulin was initiated as per the ADA guidelines, which is very clear. The choice of insulin was based on clinician's choice. This is not just my study, so this is all more than one consultant in Zydus Hospital. So I've also taken data from other consultants, and so hence different insulin choices may be there. The choice of antidiabetics was based on what I like to call it as a pizza approach. So the base of the pizza was metformin, so everybody got metformin unless contraindicated. The secret sauce was AGI, that is acarbose or voglibose. I generally prefer acarbose, given 3 times a day before meals. And the toppings were dependent on the flavor of the patient. It could have been DPP4, pioglitazone, saroglitazar, SGLT2, sulfonylurea, or GLP receptor agonist, depending on the clinical situation. Insulin initiation and titration. I remember a lot of you know that I generally tend to start with a higher dose of insulin. Fasting minus 50 divided by 10 is what we started. We asked the patient to report the fasting blood glucose using WhatsApp daily. The dose of insulin was titrated based on the fasting capillary blood glucose to achieve a target of 90 to 140. Remember, often the studies quote a target of 80 to 130. We used a target of 90 to 140. Once the fasting capillary blood glucose was achieved for 3 consecutive days, after that we called the patient back and then we put the ambulatory glucose profile, or the CGM LibrePro was applied. During the AGP phase, the LibrePro CGM was placed for 14 days and the patient was recalled after 14 days to take the AGP data. And we took the clinical parameters from AGP like the glucose management index, the time in range, time below range and time above range. So far we have done an analysis of 64 patients. My target was actually to do an analysis of 120 patients by the end of this lockdown. Unfortunately, we have not been able to complete it. The mean age of the patient was 53 years. The mean HbA1c was 10%, right? So, we all know that we all start insulin very late, and this was also true for our patients. There was a sort of equal distribution of choice of insulin. Glargine was the most commonly used. Amongst the antidiabetics, you can see the various antidiabetics used. AGI, metformin, DPP4, so on and so forth. Gliptins, Sita was most commonly used. Lina was close second. And SGLT2 EMPA was the choice for whatever reasons, right? Ultimately, the mean starting dose of insulin is around 25 to 26 units. That is about 0.2 to 0.3 units per kg. And the mean final dose was also very close to 28 to 30 units per day. We took about 3 to 8 days to achieve the target range. Now comes the interesting part, that is the CGM data. So this was the glucose management index, and this is the time in range, which you already discussed. What we found was that the average GMI, glucose management index, was 131 milligram per deciliter. Remember, I told you that the glucose management index less than 154 correlates with HbA1c less than 7%. The time in range, and I'm very proud of this, our time in range was, average time in range was 70.6%. I think so. I would say, probably pat myself on the back and say that we have been doing a reasonably good job for our patients. The time above range was 20%. And time below range was 9%, right? So this was the ultimate data which was derived from the ambulatory glucose profile. GMI target of less than 154 was achieved in 78% of our patient, which is again quite good. And time in range target of more than 70% was achieved in 60% of our patients, which is again, I think, a reasonably good achievement. Based on the various types of insulin which you use, Degludec, we had very few patients, just 3 patients. So I think that data is unreliable, you can say. But IDEC Aspart and Glargine, we had almost 70 to 80% of the patients achieve their target. So the important message I'd like to tell you, the fifth important take-home message is that time in range or time in target can be achieved in good percentage of patients with high HbA1c require insulin. So, don't be discouraged by the fact that your patient needs insulin. If the patient needs insulin, even then, in 70% of your patients, you will be able to achieve, 60 to 70% of your patients, you will be able to achieve the time in range target, which is, I think, speaks for the good quality of diabetes care which we now have, and also good quality of drugs and technology which are now available at our disposal. So I'll just summarize with some important take-home messages. First important take-home message is that the time in range is glucose value between 70 to 180 milligram per deciliter. The time in range more than 70% is the target in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes patients. The correlation between complications and time in range is an emerging area of research. The time in range matters more to our patients than HbA1c. And time in range or the target range can be achieved in a good percentage of patients with high HbA1c close to 10% requiring insulin. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe. I'm sure a lot of you are itching to go back to work. We already started work, but I think it should be very important to understand that you need to be careful. You need to be, cognizant of the fact that COVID-19 is still going to be around for a long time, and we need to keep ourselves and our family safe. Thank you.